Hello and welcome to ES Stars Technologies. In this session, we will be delving into UX research. Join me now. So, the reason why we are starting this research journey is that we want you to be able to start your design right. And to do that, we need to plan everything we would do from start to finish, which means that we need to plan our UX research. The first question that comes to mind is, why do we need a research? We just want to design, so why do we need to carry out a research? First, you are designing for users, and in most of the classes I've taught us that we need our design to be user-centered. If you are going to be a good product designer, if you are going to be a good UI UX designer, you need your product to be user-centered. And you cannot build a product that is user-centered if you don't ask these users questions, if you don't carry out your research with these users, if you don't ask the users you are going to create your product for, if you don't ask them questions, how do you create or design a product that would be user-friendly or user-centered? This is the reason why we need UX research. Now the question is, what is UX research? UX research is simply the process of understanding how people think, feel, or behave when using a product or service. This involves gathering information or gaining insights about your users' needs, your users' preferences, your users' motivations, their behaviors and challenges, pain points or frustrations in order to create a better experience for them. When you are creating a UX research, what you are doing is you are trying to gather information, you are trying to get into the mind of your users to understand what they need, their preferences, what motivates them, their behaviors, their challenges, pain points, or frustrations. This information you get is what guides your design process and enables you to create a product that meets their needs and expectations. Let's imagine you are designing a new website or a new application. Your UX research would help you answer questions like, what features do people want? How do they interact with similar products that is in line with what you are designing? What problems do they face? And what solutions can you prefer for them? UX researchers use different methods such as interviews, surveys, field studies, observations, and usability testing, among others, to collect data. They analyze this data to uncover different patterns, identify different areas for improvement, and then inform their design decisions. This would ensure that the product they are designing is user-centered, is user-friendly, very functional, and satisfying. Now, what exactly is user research plan? Because we have talked about what user experience research is, but can we not just jump into the research, go outside, ask people different questions, come back and then start designing? No, it's actually good that you plan your research. Even if you are going to go out there, carry out a field studies, you need to plan the research. And the reason why you need to plan this research is so that you follow the right process to understand your users. Now, what is UX research plan? UX research plan is a roadmap, it's a document, it's a report, it's a guiding tool that outlines how researchers will gather information and insights about users to create or improve on a product or service. At this point, you are creating a roadmap, or you are creating a document, or a report, or a guiding tool. So whether it's a document, a roadmap, a report, user experience research plan is a guiding tool that outlines how you as a researcher will gather your information and insights about your users so that you can create and improve a product or a service. You are either creating the product or service, or you are improving the product or service. Before you start your research, you need a plan to guide you so that you don't go off the trail. You need a plan to guide you so that you don't create an haphazard research. You need a plan to guide you so that at the end of the day, you are staying in line with your goals, with your client's goals, with your client's objective. You are not out of line just asking questions that will not flow with what you need in your design. This research plan helps you as a researcher to navigate the right process of studying your users and their experiences. The research plan would typically include the introduction, the goals and objectives, the background and context, the problem statements, the research questions, the hypothesis, methodology, participants, incentives, timeline, analysis and reporting, and finally your consent consideration. Now let's quickly understand what these concepts are. The introduction section sets the stage for the research plan and provides an overview of the project. So in your introduction section, what you are putting there is a short summary of everything that you are going to be doing in the research. You are providing an overview of the project. This is more like a brief introduction. It's more like a summary, as I said earlier, of the research plan document itself, not the design, not the product, not the entire product, the research plan itself. The introduction talks about the research plan itself. Now, for your goals and objectives, at this point you are presenting clear goals that define what the researchers want to achieve through their research. For example, you are looking at understanding the user needs, you are looking at evaluating the usability of the product, or you are looking at identifying the pain points of your users. For the background and context, you are looking at providing an overview of the project's industry. If you are working on a food application, you are looking at the industry of food, the food industry. If you are looking at designing or preferring a solution to fintech, you are looking at the fintech industry, you are looking at the finance industry. If you are looking at preferring a solution to education using technology, you are looking at the education industry, or you are looking at edutech industry. So you are looking at the industry that guides that particular project plan that you are working on. This highlights the problem that users are facing or the opportunity for improvement in that industry. You are looking at the industry, the problems people are facing, general problems people are facing in that industry. This helps set the context for the research activities and explains why the research is being conducted. Since you have talked about the industry, you can now look at why the research is being conducted. The next place you are going into is the problem statement. Now, in the problem statement, this articulates the specific challenge or the issue that the research aims to address. This is looking at the gap you want to fill. It highlights the problems that users are facing or the opportunities for improvement in a product or a service. The problem statement provides clarity and context for the research objectives and helps you to align the research efforts with the overall project goals. So at this point, you are looking at the problem you want to solve, you are looking at the gap you want to fill, and you are looking at aligning this gap you want to fill with the particular project that you want to work on. Then you jump into hypothesis. Your hypotheses are educated guesses or assumptions about the user's behaviors, their preferences, or their challenges. These are statements that researchers aim to either validate or disprove through their research. For example, you might be looking at an hypothetical statement like users will prefer a simplified checkout process, or users may enjoy animation in an education application. Users may enjoy gamification in an education application. Users may enjoy an animated landing page. So those are hypothetical statements that you are making. The next one is you are going to the methodology. The methodology talks about the strategies and techniques you as a researcher would use to collect your data. This can include methods like the interviews you would do, the surveys you would do, the observations, the usability testing, how you are going to carry it out. Each method you are picking here serves a different purpose. For example, you can say that you are carrying out your survey for quantitative research, and you can say that you are carrying out interview for qualitative research. You see that these are two different methods showing two different purposes, and then this helps to gather different specific types of information. For example, the survey talks about numerical data, while the interview talks about in-depth analysis of what you want to work on. So you then talk about the participants you are hoping to bring in. For the participant session, you are looking at the individuals who will take part in the research. Researchers may target specific user groups. For a medical application, you may be looking at talking to doctors, you may be looking at talking to nurses, or talking to different hospitals. So what you are doing is you are targeting specific user groups that represent the intended audience of the product or the service you want to design, or you want to build, or you want to create. Now, very importantly, you would be looking at incentives. Your incentives are the rewards or compensations offered to participants for the time and contribution they have spent on your research. This could be a monetary compensation, or a gift card, or an airtime, or a data bundle that you can share with them, or even other forms of appreciation. Incentives can help motivate participants to engage actively and provide valuable insights during your research activities. Also, you need to create a schedule. You need to create a timeline, a schedule that outlines when and for how long the research activities will take place. It helps to ensure that the research process stays on track and remains within a designated frame. You also need to create your budget section that talks about how much you are going to be spending on each of these timeline. For the quantitative research, how much would you be spending on that? For the qualitative research, how much would you be spending on that? How much would you be spending to recruit? Would you be making use of some websites? How much would you spend on those websites? How much would you spend on incentives? How much would you spend on setting up the area for your interview? And so many other things. Then you need to now talk about analysis and reporting. This part talks about a plan for how the data you have collected would be analyzed. Whatever data you have collected now, how would you analyze this data, and how would you report the data to your clients or to your stakeholders? And then after that, you then talk about your consent consideration, which addresses the ethical consideration and consent from your participants. This talks about how the researchers will obtain the consent from their participants, ensuring that their participants understand the purpose of the research, their rights, and how their data will be handled. This is very, very important when you are drawing up your research plan. It is important to prioritize participants' privacy and their data protection throughout the research process. And when you are done with all of this, that means that you've been able to create a user research plan. So this first process of carrying out a research is to draw up a user research plan. When you are done drawing up the user research plan, then you can move to the next stage,